All right, so we need to first determine the unit cost, and then the second thing that we need to do is prepare a cost reconciliation. We know our material cost is $65,475. We also know that our labor and our manufacturing overhead is $51,045. If we add all three costs, our materials, our labor, and manufacturing overhead, our total costs for the period are $116,520. So we need to determine how much of those costs we're going to allocate to the units that were transferred out of our department and how much of those costs remain in the department with that work in process at the end of the period. We completed Part A in the previous learning module, and we determined that total equivalent units for materials was 13,500, and our equivalent units for conversion cost was $12,450. The next thing we need to do is determine our unit cost. If we take our total materials cost of $65,475 and divide by our equivalent units for materials, we will arrive at a unit cost of $4.85 for materials. If we do a similar exercise for our conversion cost, again, our total conversion cost is $51,045. And if we divide by our equivalent units for our conversion cost of $12,450, we will arrive at a unit cost of $4.10 for conversion. If we add our material and our conversion cost per unit together, we get a total manufacturing cost per unit of $8.95. This company incurred $116,520 in the month of July. What we need to determine is how much of those costs we want to allocate to the products that were transferred out, and how much of those costs do we want to allocate to the products that still remain in our inventory, in our work in process inventory specifically. What we're going to do here is let's focus on our transferred out first. We know that we transferred out 12,000 units, and we know that our total manufacturing cost per unit is $8.95. If we multiply those two numbers together, we will arrive at $107,400, and that's the amount that we transferred out. If we take a look at our materials, again, we know that we had 1,500 of equivalent units for our materials in the ending work in process. We simply multiply that by the material cost per unit of $4.85 to arrive at $7,275. That's the materials cost we want to allocate to our work in process inventory. We're going to do a similar calculation for our conversion cost. We know that the work in process equivalent units was 450. We also know that the conversion cost per unit was $4.10. If we multiply those two numbers, we arrive at $1,845. If we add our material and our conversion cost together, we get $9,120. And that's the amount we're going to allocate to our work in process ending inventory. Again, we want to make sure that what we transferred out and what we allocated to our work in process equals what we were supposed to account for. It does, $116,520. All right, this is a great problem where you're determining equivalent units, unit production cost, and also determining the amount that we're going to assign to the cost of goods transferred out, as well as our work in process. Right, whenever you start looking at a problem like this, whether it's for the exam or on your homework, I want you to first separate the cost from the physical units. Right, so again, we have 25,000 units in our beginning work in process. We know that we started 435,000 units, and we have 35,000 in ending work in process. That's all that we're given when it comes to our units, but that's all that we need. We can figure out everything with those three numbers. And again, when it comes to our cost, again, we're going to take a look at our cost in step 3. All right, the first thing, step 1, is we want to account for our physical units. We were told that we started with 25,000 units. We also know that we started 435,000 units. So the total units are 460,000. We know that we have work in process of 35,000. And we also know that our total units to be accounted for must equal the units accounted for, which means our transferred out has to be 425,000 units. In step 2, we need to calculate equivalent units. We know that we transferred out $425,000, so we're going to put that in both the materials and conversion cost. We also know that all materials were added at the beginning of the process, so we're going to actually add $35,000 to our materials column to arrive at equivalent units of 460,000. We're going to add 425 to our conversion cost, but we're only going to add 14,000 to our work in process ending inventory because those 35,000 units were only 40% complete. So our equivalent units for our conversion cost are 439,000. In step 3, we're going to calculate our unit production cost. The first thing we need to do is we need to obtain our total materials as well as conversion cost. We know that we began the period with $29,000 of materials. We added over $1 million, so our total material cost is $1,035,000. Our conversion cost, we began the period with $16,500. We added $246,900 during the month, which means our total conversion costs are $263,400. We just calculated our equivalent units in step 2. So if we divide our equivalent units into our total cost, we'll arrive at a cost per unit of $2.25 for our materials. We also know that our equivalent units for conversion costs are $439,000. If we divide that into our total conversion cost for the month of $263,400, we'll arrive at a cost per unit of 60 cents for conversion costs. If we add our unit cost for materials with the unit cost for conversion, we'll arrive at a total manufacturing cost per unit of $2.85. All right, let's first determine the cost to be accounted for. We know that the cost in our work in process at the beginning of the year or beginning of the month was $45,500. We also know that during the month we incurred over $1.2 million of cost. Our total cost are $1,298,400. Right, so now we have to determine how much of those costs were transferred out and how much of those costs remain in our work in process at the end of the month. Right, we're going to go back to step 2 and we're going to take a look at what units were transferred out. We know that we transferred out 425,000 units, and we're going to multiply that by $2.85. That's our total manufacturing cost per unit. So we transferred out $1,211,250. When it comes to our work in process, we're going to go back to step 2, and we're going to grab those equivalent units for the ending work in process. We know we had 35,000 in materials. We also know that the material cost per unit was $2.25, so our materials cost for our work in process inventory is $78,750. And if we do a similar exercise for our conversion cost, again, go back to step 2 and look at what those equivalent units were for the work in process. We arrived at 14,000. We want to multiply that by the conversion cost per unit of 60 cents so that we're going to allocate $8,400 to our work in process. If we add our materials and our conversion cost, we'll arrive at $87,150. So of that $1,298,400, $1,211,250 is going to get transferred out, whereas $87,150 will remain within our work in process. We can summarize everything we did by preparing the production cost report. And again, it includes step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4. And you can see the format here. For exercise 1613, the end result is that production cost report, but what I'm going to do is kind of work through each of the steps, and then we'll conclude with the report itself. All right, step 1, so we want to account for our units. We know that we transferred out 55,000 units. We also know that we started 51,000 units. We were told that our ending work in process was 11,000 units, so we know we have 66,000 units to account for. Right? We can back into what the beginning work in process number was by simply subtracting 66,000 from 51,000 to arrive at 15,000 units. Right, when it comes to our equivalent units, if we transferred out 55,000 units, then they are complete with respect to both materials and conversion cost. Our materials were all added at the beginning of the process, so they are 100% complete with respect to materials. Our equivalent units for materials are 66,000. Again, our conversion cost, those that transferred out, are complete with respect to our conversion cost. Our work in process was 1/5 or 20% complete, so it's 2,200 equivalent units. And again, the total equivalent units for the conversion cost is 57,200. All right, step 3, we want to determine our unit cost. The first thing we have to obtain is our total cost. We know that our total materials cost was $198,000, again, 18,000 plus 180,000. We also know that our conversion cost was 143,000. And again, you can see where those numbers are coming from, for a total of $341,000 of cost. If we divide those costs by the equivalent units, which we just found in step 2, we'll arrive at a unit cost for materials of $3 and a material or a conversion cost per unit of $2.50. If we add our materials and our conversion cost per unit, we get a total manufacturing cost of $5.50. If we focus on just our work in process, the cost of work in process, it's $32,175. If we add to that the costs that were started into production in the month, we arrive at our total cost of $341,000. All right, we know we have to account for $341,000. The question is, how much of those costs were transferred out and how much of those costs need to remain with our work in process ending balance? We know that we completed and transferred out 55,000 units. We also know that our total manufacturing cost per unit is $5.50. If we multiply those two numbers, we'll obtain $302,500, and that's the amount that was transferred out. We know that our equivalent units for materials for the ending work in process was 11,000 units. We're simply going to multiply that by the materials cost per unit of $3 to arrive at $33,000. We also know that our equivalent units for our ending work in process conversion costs were 2,000 units or 2,200. If we multiply that by $2.50, we'll arrive at $5,500. If we add our materials and our conversion cost together, then the cost that we're going to allocate to our work in process on February 28th is $38,500. If we add our transferred out plus our work in process, we get $341,000, and that's the amount that we needed to account for. All right, the last step is the preparation of the production cost report. And again, this simply incorporates step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4. And we just covered each of those steps in detail.